Hello everyone, it's time to do another deck profile. This time it's on a Premium Maelstrom deck because I primarily play Maelstrom in Premium and I obviously still had a bunch of G cards back for Maelstrom. So I obviously have to primarily play Maelstrom in Premium since I don't really like having duplicate decks that much. So I don't really play V Maelstrom as much. Especially, I did not really like V Maelstrom as much when it was first reintroduced because attack hit cards more so than what corresponds with the original. So, I prefer Premium Maelstrom. And unlike in V, where basically every deck only does the same exact thing, the Premium Maelstrom deck, how I build it, has a lot of different type of plays and you just play how it benefits you the best. Because depending on what scenarios, you will use one certain card, and in another scenario, you will use something different. Hence why I like Premium, because there's a lot of stuff you can do. Although if you're one of those newer players, I don't really recommend going to Premium as much, because, yeah, it's a lot of old cards that you have to get. But this is more for fun than anything, and I still like Premium a lot, so Premium Maelstrom, because I have a lot of leftover cards. But anyway, this is of course updated with the previous clan collections along with the current clan collection because I haven't really made too many updates, so I just didn't really do profiles on them. But now with the new Maelstrom, I just kind of had to do it. Previous clan collection also had few cards, and previous clan collection obviously also has few cards, so I could just make the profile now. I was thinking about doing it later with the new premium set with the G unit, but it's just one card that you're probably going to just play one or two of, so it's just going to change the G zone up a little bit and maybe a trigger lineup, but that's about it. But in that, on with the deck on which gift marker would you like to choose? Obviously 2, because that gives you your plus, and if you're on Maelstrom Reversed, you don't really want to hit. And then the deck itself. So first off, let's start off with, of course, the main card, or at least the base form, the V Maelstrom, because this is quote-unquote supposed to be your first ride, but I don't really use this as a first ride at all. Especially in Premium, there is a way to cheat out the Maelstrom in Soul without even rewriting. And in many cases, you don't really want to rewrite because this is Premium we're talking about. You rather Stride in some cases. So just 2 copies because you're not going to really ride this. I'm going to be very honest, other than maybe a backup first ride if you need to. And yes, you do want to ride those with a gift marker on it, so I did take out Lordly Maelstrom, because this deck is not going to focus on the Soul Maelstrom method anymore, but rather just get more whatever advantage that there is, mainly with the gift markers and the multi-attack. But anyway, the skill of this card, like the V1, it's the same thing, plus 3k with 1 counter blast for your whole front row. That's fine. And then second skill, if your third or fourth rear guard attack hits, you can stand it by discarding 2 cards. Don't like the attack hit part, hence why you don't really want to ride it, other than being a backup first ride, because it does provide pressure right there. Next, for the card I actually will ride, the 4 Reverse Maelstrom, or just says Maelstrom Reverse, but whatever. So this card, if you go first and ride this, that's cool. If you go second, you could stride on top of it, that's cool as well. But regardless, this does kind of act like a stride unit in some cases because one of the skills, but the first skill is when one of your rear guards does not hit, you can lock a standing rear guard and this card gets plus 10k power, and then if there's a Maelstrom in Soul, you can choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. Of course, to get full power Maelstrom, it mainly has to be a second ride, but you could actually cheat out that Maelstrom in Soul in Premium because there is one specific card to let you cheat that out, so you don't even need a re-ride. But in many cases, I don't really focus on that too much since the second skill minuses your opponent a lot anyway, but that one just exaggerates it even more. The second skill makes things devastating because in the 4th attack, you can counter blast 1, it gets a crit, a drive check, so that's basically equivalent to a stride right there without discarding the grade 3. And then, if it does not hit, your opponent chooses cards from their hand and or field equal to the number of locked cards and send them to the drop zone. That's why I love Maelstrom Reverse so much. It makes your opponent whether to want to take the 2 damage to the face or they lose even more cards. Although this is not really the main focus, but this does provide a lot of advantage in comparison to some of your other cards. But still, this is the main first ride because it just provides all that pressure. And forcing your opponent to use a heal guardian isn't bad in Premium either because that can also be a G guardian right there or stride fodder. Most of the time G guardian, but this is just the main Maelstrom ride target for me because in whatever scenario and you're forced to be on this grade 3, it is just good. Finally, to my last grade 3, I run 4 Glory Maelstroms. Yes, I have 10 grade 3s in this deck. And one of the reasons is, like I said earlier, you can cheat out a Maelstrom to your soul 1 turn early. And that's why I decided to run 10 grade 3s in this deck, and why 2 of them requires you to have a Maelstrom and soul. Because one method, of course, I like is that you can stride, and one of the cards require you to have a Maelstrom in the drop zone to cheat out the Maelstrom and soul, so just adding that extra 2 grade 3s really help out. So basically some extra stride fodder that is actually Maelstrom. But if you do ride this card, which is just in many ways just better scenario when you're stuck on grade 3 and can't stride, is that the skill where you can counterblast 1 for the rest of the turn, your opponent can only guard with 1 card for each attack you make, and if you have a Maelstrom and Soul, plus 10k to your whole front row, which of course turns into unblockable stuff if you reach high enough numbers. But it's not the main focus, but that guard restrict is very powerful if you need to finish the game. The unfortunate thing is that there is a G unit that has a better guard restrict than this, so it is very likely you're not going to use this unless if you have no other choice. And of course, this is just one of your ways of being a finisher, so obviously you just run it. But other than that, the extra 2 grade 3s is really just to make sure that they're stride fodders that are Maelstrom. And now to the grade 2 lineup. So first off, speaking of cheating out the Maelstrom, I still run the Blue Storm Soldier Eldermost. My grade 2 lineup hasn't changed, I'm just going to tell you that right now. So first off, when placed, you reveal a card from your hand. If your Vanguard is Maelstrom, or the revealed card is Maelstrom, this doesn't lose the 5k, so it could stay its 10k base for the turn. Most of the time, you're not going to lose it. But the main skill is the second one, where it's an act. Once per turn, you can counterblast 1, put a Maelstrom from your drop zone into your soul, and it gets plus 4k, and it can attack from the back row. So not only it could beat over those 13k base, it also can cheat out the Maelstrom to soul. And since you're going to be striding, you could discard the Maelstrom, hence why I run 10 grade 3s to add a little more consistency, and then just put that Maelstrom into your soul, and now you just basically cheat out the Maelstrom without rewriting. You don't want to constantly rely on rewriting. Yes, you do get more Accel markers, but I'm going to be really realistic that most of the time you're not going to be able to fill up all those circles depending on the matchup. At most, you're going to have maybe 2 Accel markers, but that's about it. Other than that, I rather use them for striding because striding is more powerful than rewriting just to get more Accel markers. Yeah, it does provide you a draw, kind of negating that extra minus. And if you're on Maelstrom reverse, that kind of still negates the minus. But preferably, I'd rather use that grade 3 to stride than rewrite because less power. Just personal preference. But this is just overall really good because it stays in the back row, being a back row attacker, which can get you another attack, and cheating out the Maelstrom and Soul, which is also very nice right there. Next, Terrific Coil Dragon. When this card stands by a card ability, it gets plus 5k and is once per turn, so it's 14k attacker, but it combos with the second skill where is that when it attacks for the first battle, you can Soul Blast 1 to stand it. So attack, you use the skill, Soul Blast to stand it in the middle of the attack, and it's 14k and it's twice. Very nice. You could run Algos, does the same thing, except that one costs us a counterblast, but considering that there's not really much Soul Blasting skills in this deck other than this card, I decided to run this instead. And also, of course, you want to reach your 4th attacks. Next, where an original is better than the new version, the original title Assault, because this card stands for free, but it minuses 5k after that attack. That's fine. You're gonna build up your 2 attacks just with 1 card for free! And now to the grade 1 lineup. First off, Wheel Assault. Another way to get more attacks, because at the end of the battle that this card boosts, you choose 2 of your rear guards and exchange positions with them. It doesn't have to be same column, so that's also nice. And you could just exchange 1, and you can exchange 1 from the Accel Marker with another card, which is pretty good right there. Main reason why I run it. And then the other skill is that when a card is rolled upon it, you can counterblast 1, draw a card, and then call a card to rear guard. It's just there for some ride advantage, but you don't really use that skill too often. You mainly use it for the exchange part, although on Maelstrom reverse turns, you're probably not going to do that, but considering that you're going to be striding a lot, this is fine. And for more just-in-case measures, I run the Radiant Assault because Radiant Assault, when placed, you can Soul Blast 1, and then during the battle that this unit attacks or boosts, the attack ability activates regardless of status, so it's just attack hit enabler for regular Maelstrom if you have to use that on going first, being your grade 3 ride. And then You can put a Maelstrom from your drop zone to the bottom of the deck to draw a card, which can be very nice sometimes for recycling. But of course, you're most likely going to want those in Soul instead with Eldermost, but it's there just in case. And then one card that I find really good in this deck, especially with Maelstrom Reverse, Propulsion Dragon, because Propulsion Dragon, at the end of battle, this card attacks a grade 2 or greater, you can counterblast 1, switch this card with a card from the back row, and then stand it so it could be reused as a booster. That's very nice right there. So one strategy I like to do with it is attack using it on the Accel Marker being 13k, and then swap something from the back, and then that can also be 13k at least, because of course you can put one of your grade 1s there and it will still be 13k. So that's very nice, and this could be reused as a booster. With Maelstrom Reverse case, you could just put this in the back and lock it, which there's also that. Yeah, this card has been really helping out a lot, and it's just really good. It's of course another way to get your 4 attacks. And then, of course, you got to run Anakin Penguin, because main countercharger when you commit the 4th attack, and it has to be exactly 4th, which is what I don't like about, but still good. And then the other part is that you can rest this unit and then choose a card from the same column as it, and it gets plus 5k. Because making something like Terrific Coil being 19k for 2 attacks isn't bad. And in some cases, you will just use it with Tidal Assault as well, because Tidal Assault can still attack 9k rearguards, which there are still many decks that do still have. So it isn't entirely bad to use the first skill, especially because you're striding and not using Maelstrom Reverse every single turn. So that's the grade 1 lineup. Here's my starter. I chose Eric because I decided to go the V route, because getting that extra draw and the quick shield is better than just doing a Forerunner. And then for the trigger lineup, first off the over trigger, and then I go for 7 crits, because the trigger kind of counts as everything, especially because 4 draw PGs, you don't want to lose 1 PG. And the 4 Heal Guardians, because Heal Guardians are the best in Premium, being a grade 3 G guard plus early game defensive. Yeah, just the best in Premium. So that's it for the main deck. To the G zone. First off, to one of your first strides, Disaster Maelstrom, because when this card attacks, you can flip a copy of itself from the G zone and then search for 1 Maelstrom per deck, and if you have a Maelstrom in Soul, which that could be cheated out, 3 units in your front row gets plus 5k. That's fine. This is here for searching, and it can be your first stride if you just don't have the advantage, but most of the time you're not going to really stride this. Rather, this is going to become flip fodder, because you want to build up the Maelstroms in your G zone as well. And it's all for this. This is probably your main finisher for the deck, and more so than Glory, because this is pretty much the ultimate guard restrict card. One of his skills is that first off, an act, once per turn you can flip a card from your G zone face up, and then if you have 2 Maelstroms face up in your G zone, it gets plus 5k and 1 crit. That does actually help, and it does pressure your opponent. But you mainly use it for the main skill, where wave 4 or more, basically the 4th attack or more, when this card attacks, your opponent cannot guard with any cards from their hand or G zone with grades less than the amount of Maelstrom cards in Soul. Yeah, that's a very powerful guard restrict skill, because if the minute that you have 1 Maelstrom in Soul, which makes rewriting not really bad at all, but most of the time you're going to be using it for striding, but anyway, that's besides the point. The minute that you have 1 Maelstrom in Soul, that destroys any type of grade 0s, which includes draw PGs. If you have 2 Maelstroms in Soul, that prevents grade 1s, which basically means no PGs at all anymore. Yeah, that's very powerful right there. And normally I stride into this the minute I have 2 Maelstroms in Soul, which isn't really too hard. Yes, it is a second stride, but by then you should be able to finish the game with this. And the second copy is just there, just in case my opponent survives it. But other than that, this is a much better finisher in my opinion than Glory Maelstrom, because making your opponent cannot block an attack at all can be very nasty. There are a few games that lasted very long, and I have reached 5 Maelstroms, which makes it unblockable at that point. But your opponent only having G guards to block is just a very low chance of even blocking this attack for one, especially now we got 10k triggers. And another one is that grade 2s are only 5k shield, so just by having 2 Maelstroms in Soul is already very nasty for this card, and that's what I like. And Eldermost can cheat out those Maelstroms in Soul. You might rewrite at least one time just to get some more advantage, but on that, in my opinion, this is like the best finisher for the deck, unless if you need to go for the Glory route if you cannot make the 4 attacks. And when it comes to losing advantage, and this is now my main first stride, Genbolg Dragon, and it's still Blue Storm, so it is an archetype, but not Maelstrom. But anyway, so when it's placed on Vanguard, you can look at the top 7 cards of your deck and choose 2 cards to call them as res. This is very helpful because it kind of negates some of your minuses, and Aquaforce desperately needs field presence, which is one weakness of the deck. If your field gets blow up and you can't recover it, you might really struggle. So this can really help, especially as a first stride where you can just gain some pluses and just save up your hand. And then the other skill, where when this card attacks you can counterblast 1, flip a card from your G-Zone face up, and then for every 2 rested cards, you draw a card and choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. If you drew 3 cards from this skill, meaning that you need an Accel Marker for having a total of 6 rear guards, you can stand 2 of your rear guards. So it does give you 1 or 2 more attacks, normally 1 because you probably will want to boost rather than get 2 small pokes, because that is a problem with Aquaforce as well, is that they do a lot of small pokes, but 1 trigger can stop everything. But overall, this just provides so much advantage because it can recover your field. It gives you pluses. Sure, you don't get 1 of your attacks in some cases, but that's fine. It just helps you recover plays. It helps you set up your board if you need to. It's just plussing overall. And now the rest are just generic strides. So we got Alexandros, where during the 2nd or 3rd attack, you can counterblast 1, flip anything face up, and then stand to your rear guards, and then get plus 5k for every face up card in the G-Zone. So this just becomes stronger over time. But you don't need to run 4. 2 is fine as well if you want to run other things. There's just many options. And then I run the 1 Valios Revive because this is pretty decent for multi-attacking as well. Because when it attacks, you can turn any card from your G-Zone face up. And then you can call as many cards as you want from your hand to rear guard. And then draw 1 card for each one, which can replenish many things sometimes. And then make your opponent stuck at 11k power. So like typical Valios, it fixes your opponent's power in a certain power and they cannot increase it. So that's nice right there. But you don't really stride to this too often. I'm going to be realistic here. You're most likely going to go to Genbolg instead, because Genbolg provides even more advantage. It does the draw power and field setup. This does give you multi-attack, so there is that. And at the same time, it also fixes your opponent's power. So in early game wise, it is pretty useful. Although it does require at least 2 face-up cards in the G-Zone to make your opponent fix at 11k, so that might not be the best option to 2nd stride this. But you have the option. And then finally, Xerath Dragon Megiddo, because Xerath Dragon, and it's been reprinted, so why not? And then for the G-Guardians, first off, Ilionis. This is probably the best G-Guardian for the deck, even though it's a Generation Break 1, but its skill is that you can counterblast 1, flip a G-Guardian from your G-Zone face up, and then this card gets 5k shield for every rear guard on your field, hoping that your opponent doesn't really kill your field beforehand. And they also get resist, which can be nice, and they cannot be hit, so it does save your rear guards if your opponent doesn't nuke them in the main phase anyway. But overall, it is probably the best G-Guardian in the deck because it does at least have consistent power if you still have your rear guards. Which, of course, you do have field presence in this deck, but depending on the matchup, you might not be able to use this. And then I run the Ice Barrier Dragon, because it gets an extra 10k shield on the first attack, or the 4 for more, so against multi-attack decks is probably the best. But I don't really like the restriction on this G-Guardian, but there are many cases where your opponent's Vanguard is just going to attack first, so it is okay. But at the same time, letting your opponent decide on how your guard pattern is going to be crappy. And then for the 2nd or 3rd attack, we got Galflia. This is a 1-up because it's a 20k shield on the 2nd or 3rd attack. So for Ice Barrier Dragon, it's for 1st or 4 for more. This one is 2nd or 3rd. So you do have 1 for each scenario, especially that Heal Guardians are 15k shield, so you do get some shield value. But the big part is actually the 2nd skill, where you can Soul Blast 1 and turn this face-up G card back face down, and then choose a card on the field or damage zone and turn it face up. So this can help you unlock, which is very good, or give you a counter charge depending on the matchup. That's just really good. This is just the best flip fodder for this deck. It's a Soul Blast 1 for a counter charge or an unlock. There's no reason why not to run this. And you can constantly flip this back face down as well, so you shouldn't even have a problem flipping this. And of course you can always just use this as a G-Guardian, which is also recyclable. So yeah, best G-Guardian for the deck. So that's it for this deck profile. What do you guys think about my Maelstrom deck for Premium, post-Clan Collection 3 and 4? And what other suggestions would you make? So far, this deck has been working pretty well. It doesn't have one singular strategy, unlike in V, because in Premium, anything can happen. But one big standard thing about Maelstrom is that you commit your big multi-attacks to get you either your 4th attack and get some guard restriction out of it, because that's what Maelstrom is known for. And overall, this deck has been working really well and it's really fun. There are some other cards that I like to try out, because this is Premium we're talking about. We have so many cards that we could probably test out for the deck. But so far, this deck has been working really well. At most, I might run more Radiant Assault, or maybe just take those out for more Wheel Assaults, because there's just a lot of stuff that you can try out. I might even run some big hitters like Driftflow Fencer, because that does still search a Maelstrom, and it could be a 27k attacker when you commit the 4th attack with it. But at the same time, I'd rather have those multi-attack grade 2s, especially Eldermost, that can cheat out the Maelstrom in Soul, which makes you one turn faster because you don't want to be constantly rewriting. So there's just a lot of things that you could try out, but overall I just have fun with the deck. Especially with Maelstrom Reverse being now my main first ride, and I kind of prefer Maelstrom Reverse over riding regular Maelstrom, and having Glory is a little weird. But like I said before, this deck doesn't really have a singular strategy, as the Strides can also change your strategy as well. But there is that one constant thing of pressuring your opponent, especially when you're going to do the guard restrict on the big turn. But on that's it for this, and let's see what does the next Premium set give us for a G unit, because that will likely take out the 2 Alexandros most likely. And see you all next time.